Ba-da-ba-da-dum.
Hello, can you hear me? Perfect.
I do hear you.
Perfect. Well, I think we are just gonna go live.
Good. Liking that.
All right. So, got a confirmation we are live. So, perfect. Well, first of all, thanks a lot for taking out time to join the community and taking out time to join this effort. It's a great pleasure to have you. So, folks, on the live stream, I would like to welcome you all to WWDC Community Week. It's a great platform for developers around the world joining in to share their experiences, share the knowledge, and improve together as a community. Um, I'll probably pass on to Paul for his introduction because I don't think I'll be doing justice with it. And we all love Paul. Thanks again for joining. I'll pass on to you, and I'll pass on to you, and please go ahead, introduce yourself, and think then we can start talking Swift UI.
That sounds great. So, hey, folks, my name is Paul. I run this site, as you can see, if I haven't guessed already, Hacking with Swift. I talk a lot about Swift. I talk a lot about Swift. And obviously, this week, particularly, thanks to DubDub, Swift 545, Xcode 13, iOS 15, bang, 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 bang. It's been an explosive week. So, my brain's been on fire since Monday. It's been an amazing week so far. And I really hope you're also enjoying it. And I was saying earlier in the gather town environment, it's so easy to have these online events where they're very much unidirectional. Just someone records a video and sends it out to you, or does a talk like this one and just basically talks at you for a while. And there's a lot of value to that. The dub videos are beautifully produced and I love them very much. But this is WWDC community. I'm really, really keen to hear what you folks have enjoyed in the week. What you folks thought, oh, that Swift UI thing. I can't wait to get started with that. And so Ishmeet has set up a, what do they call it, Padlet, where you can post questions, apparently, or there's like a chat area or maybe things stream in somewhere. I would love to see feedback from you. What's your favorite WWDC session so far? What is your number one Swift UI favorite new feature? Trust me, I can just sit here and talk at you. I can do that for a long time. I'm very good at talking at the camera. But I also want to learn from you too. What are you working on? What do you find cool? What are you excited about? What did you miss out this year? Maybe there's a feature missing from Swift UI this year that you're missing out on. So I hope it does say at the bottom of the screen, like here, like this, ask Paul Hudson anything. You can do that. I can just talk to myself and talk to you. It's fine. We can do the unidirectional thing, or you can post some questions and see what you think. And I'll have see what you think. So someone actually posted already that they think text selection is good, and they're right. They've said it's super minor. So text selection is only available on macOS right now. It's not an iOS modifier, but it does mean you can allow selection of text to use easily. And it's like one of those things that it sounds obvious, but it wasn't there before, and now it is. So it is a real quality of life improvement. And actually, if you look at, and I don't want to take shots at folks because they're doing the best, but I was trying to follow the docs.c tutorial today on WWDC, and they had the copy code thing in developer app, where you can basically swipe things out of there and use it. I was trying that, and copying code out of there was very, very hard to do actually, because they hadn't done a good job getting copyable text, and it's very frustrating when you want to just get some text out and now you can't. It's very frustrating. Oh, someone's mentioned Playgrounds 4. Yes, person behind my own heart. I am loving Playgrounds 4 because that is something I've talked about previously. We have over here we had Playgrounds 3, this had cartoony, move forward, collect gem, bite the little cartoon character. Great on iPad, great for kids. And then over here was full fat Xcode, storyboard, Objective C, everything. And there was no middle ground. There was no way to kind of start out here and then edge your way towards the full thing. And I said last year, I hope they provide a way to build apps, and they have done, and ship apps. So they've gone beyond what I expected. Now, what we don't know yet is quite how powerful it's going to be because, yeah, you get all of Swift. Yeah, you get, Swift UI, core graphics, ARKit, it's great. But we don't know what else you can do. You know, can you effectively push and pull code to GitHub? And I've asked them directly, they haven't replied. And I suspect that means no is the answer. And if you can't use GitHub, then it kind of makes it a bit harder to bridge that gap because um, not that iCloud's flaky, but I wouldn't want to do any serious work using iCloud and Swift and stuff. I want to put it somewhere safe. So that isn't ideal. Someone's pointed out focus state. Focus state's a lovely new Swift UI feature because, and it sounds silly saying this, this is Swift UI 3, right? Swift UI 1 and Swift UI 2, 2 whole years, we've been unable to resign the keyboard or even focus a text element. And now we can, and that's focus state right there. And it's so easy to use. And the best bit is, I was thinking ahead of time, how are they going to make this possible? Because it's all, it's all declarative. You can't say so and so become first responder, so and so resign first responder. That's not how declarative UI works. And so their solution of having this focus state enum, or whatever you want to have really, pushing the state around, the focus around using a state is absolutely brilliant. They did a very, very good job. And that I think actually is one of the best bits about Swift UI. Because you think about Swift, Swift 1, when it shipped, they had uh, everything on day one, basically. You could do Sprite Kit, you could do all the UI kit, app kit, you name it, core graphics, it's there from day one. And as a result, it took time to kind of figure out what Swift ought to look like. And Swift 3, of course, is a big sort of breaking change there. In Swift UI, they basically said, okay, we're going to ship this little bit, this just little bit of Swift UI. You can do good tables, navigation, tabs, that's about it, right? You couldn't do pull to refresh, whatever. And as a result, they're adding these things in later, slowly, slowly, slowly. And it gives them time to think about it really carefully and reinvent it for what makes sense in Swift UI. For example, the new visual effect stuff, the equivalent to UI Kit's UI visual effect view or AppKit's NS visual effect view. Wow, wow, it's brilliant. Its simplicity is just beautiful. It's just a Z stack of layers. And like in retrospect, that's obvious. But they only becomes obvious through careful refinement, careful working through. And that kind of thing is one of the main reasons I love SwiftUI. They are rethinking these paradigms. So yeah, focus state, the visual effect stuff, amazing. Love it. They've done a great, great job. Someone here has opened up Pandora's box by mentioning async await. And in particular, yes, they did actually say it's not just async await, it's also the way that's inside Swift UI. And they're right. I wrote this thing 2 weeks ago, I want to say, what's new in Swift 5.5? And the answer was a billion things, right? It's a huge, huge release. In my opinion, the biggest since Swift 3, at least, if not the biggest since Swift 1. It's just huge. And I'm sitting there writing it saying, well, this stuff's really good. This stuff's really good. This stuff's really good. What we don't know yet is how they're going to integrate that into Foundation, how they're going to integrate that into Swift UI, how it'll be in UI Kit. And now we know. We've seen now how it integrates into Swift UI, and it's brilliant. It's brilliant. This person's picked out Refreshable particularly, and they're right. Refreshable, the way it works. Can I share my screen? How do I share my screen? Share entire screen. Yes. Hopefully you can see my screen. Yeah, it says I'm sharing my screen. Refreshable is brilliant. I mean, it really, the way they've done it, like I said, the way they've thought about what is the Swift UI native way to do this is just brilliant because they've taken out so much of the complexity, so much of the fluff, so much of like what are you actually trying to do here? And as a result, when you have like a navigation view up here with some stuff inside, let's say text hello world, whatever. Boom, hello world. And all you're going to do is attach to this thing. I want to have a refreshable modifier here, and that's it. And enable immediately the ability to do refresh. Now, right now, okay, it's IFTT no, later only. Sorry, it's complaining at me. Right now, it only works with lists, but in theory, it should work with scroll views as well. And it's so easy to do because of async await. You can just literally say, await some task here. And what will happen is as you pull down, the spin will start appearing. Pull far enough, the spin will just appear constantly until your task finishes asynchronously and the spinner goes away. And it's just like such a naturally perfect fit. They've done a really, really good job. And that's what this super tight integration between Swift UI and Swift allows them to do remarkable things very, very quickly. So, yeah, Refreshable is absolutely brilliant. I'm very impressed with that. Same as Searchable, to be fair. Searchable is also very impressive. Anyway, let's stop sharing and see what else you're saying on this Padlet board. Blah, 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 blah. What we got here then? There's quite a few. Uh, do you have any plans to work with DocC? DocC is very nice. Like, it's obviously an extensive amount of work. They've got a decent team size for multiple years working towards this goal. And DocC obviously allows you to do very, very nice markdown documentation of your code. That's a given. That's jazzy, right? It adds to that the ability to have custom designed documents, articles you've written with diagrams, pictures, whatever you want to inside there, linking however you want to. And it builds gorgeous, developer.apple.com style reference documentation. That stuff is good. And I think for my frameworks, I'll be doing the same thing. I'll be using all the frameworks I have. I'll just add in DocC because it's going to be natural, I think. It'll be a very, very fast uptake. The other half of DocC is this tutorial system they've made where you can build the tutorials of the style they had with the original Swift UI stuff. Where you sort of select locations and then you see a picture of the phone and you scroll down and see some code and then scroll down, see a picture again, scroll down code. And they're really nice. They're really, really nice. I'm glad they exist, but they're not the way I write tutorials. And they're not the tutorials I want to read. And so I wouldn't be excited about using them. Like the Venn diagram crossover between those tutorials and my stuff is just ever so slim, if nothing at all. And so no, I don't think I'll be using much of DocC in terms of tutorials, but the actual markdown stuff, yeah, that'll be in my packages very quickly because it's really, really nice. So, question here, is there a way to access Swift 5.5 and SwiftUI 3 and Xcode 12.4 on macOS Catalina? No. I mean, you can get Swift 5.5. That's available from swift.org/download. You can get the toolchain, put in Xcode 12.4. That's what I did before last week. That works fine. You can't have SwiftUI 3. That is only available, obviously, with the new iOS 15 or macOS Monterey APIs. So you can get halfway there. You can get, bits of async await. You can get bits of async let, for example, async sequence and more. But the actual SwiftUI 3 APIs, no, you are sadly out of luck. I've got Xcode 13 on that one. So many questions. Gosh, can I remove the ones I've answered already? Can I remove these things or not? Expand post. That's not helpful. Okay. Someone asks, what's the best way to make a full screen text editor in SwiftUI? I mean, it did say ask Paul Hudson anything, didn't it? To be fair, it's not actually that hard. I cover it. Oh, I think I want to say in one of the Swift on Sunday sessions. I'm going to check GitHub lightning fast because I think I covered it in one of the sessions there. It's not actually that hard because it's kind of baked into SwiftUI these days. Swift on Sundays. Might have dreamt it, mind you. It's all powered through document group. Yep, I am wrong. I put it somewhere else. The question is, where would I put it? I've got lots of UI code, folks. It's also document group. You get immediate integration with the file navigator, with iCloud, all that kind of jazz. It works really, really well out of the box. Not a lot of work, really. The hard part then is, what value you add to it, because you can't have a text editor and then iCloud. Anyone could do that. What are you going to add to it? So, yeah, it's not as hard as you think. Oh, wow, you can scroll down the questions as well. Sorry, there's more questions than I realized. uh, Okay. Uh, what was a modifier that worked like on a peer but stays for the life of a view? That's an interesting question. I'm not quite sure what you're referring to. Um, on a peer is called once and then never again. That does stay for the life of the view, but it can be, of course, recreated or struck at any point. I it's possibly thinking about task. That's one of the new iOS 15 modifiers, and I mean conceptually it sounds like it's replacing on a peer, but they haven't deprecated on a peer, so I'm not quite sure what the reasoning for that is going to be. We'll see. I mean, there's still time. They might still deprecate more. They've done enough already, quite frankly. They've nuked all sorts of things there. Yeah, so if it is task, they've added some comments. I think you're thinking of task. It is an async task, so yeah, it'll be that. So many questions. What new thing at WWDC other than SwiftUI interested you? Um, I think this year, I mean, there's been a very heavy focus, and I it was obvious ahead of time. I told folks last week, read about async await now, read about structured concurrency now, read about actors now. Don't try and do it during dub week because you'll hear a lot about it. And it was obvious, but I got it right because so many of the talks were on asynchronicity somewhere, either directly in Swift itself or SwiftUI with that, or modifying SwiftUI to match it, whatever. There were lots of talks using async await and similar, and that's been the biggest thing, that they are willing to push very, very hard on concurrency and try and explain to folks how it works. Sadly, I mean, I've watched all the talks so far, and I've talked to a whole bunch of folks. There's a lot of confusion out there. Apple don't like picking winners. They don't like saying, this is the way to do something. They like giving you a number of ways and then expect you to kind of figure out what works for you. And that's fine. And eventually, in theory, the community kind of finds a winner. We just navigate towards, say, the coordinator pattern, for example, in UIKit. And so we're kind of swimming around trying to find things and more. And eventually we find something we like. And that's how they want it to work, I think. They want to sit in and going, well, do I want to use actors or do I want to use main actor, or is combine the right thing here or something else? And we don't really know at this point. We're kind of figuring it out. So there's a lot of information, but there's not a lot of guidance yet. And I honestly suspect it's not going to come. Apple aren't going to say, yep, here, and here, actors, here, and here, use main actor, here, and here, use task group. No, that's not going to happen. It's basically leaving it for us to figure out, sadly. So this is why I asked a whole bunch of folks a couple of days ago. I'm thinking of writing a book about concurrency, an online free book. And not big either. A short free online book about concurrency, picking out all the options and saying, well, actually, task is really good here, async's really good here, combine is still good here, and giving folks the ammo to arm themselves and figure it out themselves. So that's happening right now. I wrote the first chapters a few days ago, and it's moving forward, which is cool. That's a long answer to a very simple
Yeah,
question. I'm sorry.
there are like so many questions in there. I just want to have an opportunity to ask a question that I get asked a lot of times. So, in your opinion, SwiftUI is sort of still a new framework. We're still seeing improvements. What do you think that's going to make it something to be available and for large companies and large apps to adopt? And since you're talking about performance, how do you think it would impact the performance of large applications, enterprise applications that are out there? Do you think that time is coming soon, or is there still a long way to go?
I know for a fact, like, not maybe, not might be, not possibly. I know for an absolute fact, multiple massive companies are deploying SwiftUI internally and shortly externally. The huge $100 billion+ value companies that use SwiftUI now. We are very far past the question of, is it ready for production? People are using it aggressively because if you can remove 3 months of work and get 2 weeks of work for a subset of features, not all features, a subset of features, it's still valuable to do that. Fewer bugs, fewer time spent wasting fixing UI kit problems, whatever. When you figure out the things that Swift UI does really, really well, and you use that aggressively and push it hard, you'll save time, save money, save hassle, and that's a big attractive win for Swift UI. And so this is why we're seeing shortcuts for Mac built in Swift UI, the new weather app built in Swift UI. I mean, they're going to roll out the new weather app to 1 billion people in 3 or 4 months' time, right? They're not playing games here. They, the world's biggest company around here, $1 trillion tech company, are saying, yes, Swift UI is ready for production. And so, that's been and gone now. That question is not really a question anymore, quite frankly. People have already started the rollout. Because the problem is, if you're on a team, it is just like Swift and Objective C. If you're on a team and a new feature comes in, a new screen, and you want to use Swift, right? Because it's been out for years, you're keen to use it, but you know, all your code is Objective C. So what are you going to choose? And ideally, you choose the language everyone knows, Objective C. But in practice, everyone chose Swift because it was more fun. It was better to work with, had fewer problems. It was nicer to write, more flexible. Da, 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 da. And so we moved very aggressively over to Swift. I mean, look, it's been out, what, 5 years, 6 years now? Actually, more than that now. And Objective C is basically a rounding error at this point. No one's starting new apps in Objective C. It's just gone. And at this point in Swift, we're already on Swift 3. And that was a major turning point. And I think it's the same thing now. What the Apple have announced in Swift UI this year isn't just about more features, more features, more features. It's also about let's make this work as well on macOS and watchOS and tvOS and iOS. They've done a really good job of that. And that's why you'll see immediately, I was like, well, what's happened here? They took out action sheets. Like action sheet, gone in 50Y3. The whole thing's been deprecated in place of confirmation dialog, a new modifier. And it does the same thing, right? It presents an action sheet. But action sheets aren't available on macOS. They don't have the idea of action sheets. And so by removing action sheet and calling it confirmation dialog, you end up with this thing that does work really well on macOS and iOS. And that's just so important, to make our life easier, to deploy faster, deploy more, and it adds another string to the Swift UI bow, as it were. Paul, where are you? like Johnny Ive, I live in this room. This is it. I never leave this room. My dogs can come in and out. That's about it. I live in a small town in the southwest of England, as this person says, called Bath. It's very nice. If you like Jane Austen, or you like the Romans, or you like kind of high tea and little sandwiches with the edges cut off, Bath's the place to come. It's not a particularly jumping tech scene, but it's a lovely, lovely place. I'm very happy to live here. Do I think the time for new Objective-C code is over? Yes. That was the answer 3 years ago. I honestly, when you go back to Objective-C now, you're like, whoa, I used to write this. Goodness me. And I don't want to scare you too much. That's a bit what it's like going back to UI kit sometimes, because some things in UI kit are very, very hard to do compared to Swift UI. Please come to Brazil. Hey, make a Brazil conference. I'll be there. I don't charge to speak. I'm looking for a new chair. What chair are you using? I love it. This is a Herman Miller Aeron. They are very, very expensive, but very, very good. And I like them because you can sit on them for a long time. And I'm not, recommending folks intensely work at stuff, but sometimes, you get in the zone. Oh, this thing, it's super cool. Your brain's firing all over the place, and sitting down, you're writing the best code of your life, and it's all firing on all cylinders. It's amazing. And wow, 4 hours have gone by, 5 hours have gone by, and with this chair, you just don't feel it. Honestly, it is magical. I think it actually went into a museum, not this chair, but the design went into a museum because it's so remarkably good. How much time do you think it will go by until SwiftUI will be adopted in the market as well as UIKit is nowadays? It's hard to tell because a lot of UIKit at this point is basically legacy code. That's the majority of UIKit. Like my UIKit apps are on the App Store. They're not going away. I'm not going to rewrite them in Swift UI because that's just basically making more bugs for myself. They're going to sit there and go nowhere. I don't want to go back to Swift UI code. And eventually they'll die because Apple will say, you haven't supported, I don't know, 128-bit iPhone 9Q, I don't know, whatever it is at that point. They'll die at some point, but there's a lot of that. The long tail is very, very long, right? In fact, there are some apps I have on the App Store I haven't touched 5 years, maybe. They predate the iPhone 10 and they're still for sale in the App Store. So Apple's got quite a long tail on that one. So there'll be a lot of time for UI kit's really, really gone. And also to be fair, keep in mind UI kit is still advancing. I mean, it's not dead by a long way. UI kit every year has new things. Just last year, the new UI collection view stuff was huge to do lists and similar. This year, it's a bit easier. They've done performance work, they've done button work and similar, but the bottom sheets are there, for example. You haven't got those in Swift UI yet, so not quite there yet. Dealing with a big Swift UI project, what's your recommendation to handle complex navigation / deep link like we had coordinated before? So this was like one of the two most asked questions when Swift UI launched, like 2 years ago. How do I use the coordinator pattern? How do I use MVVM? Those two things again and again and again and again. And I hated it. I hated it so much. And I love the coordinator pattern. Suresh Kanlu, good friend, lovely, lovely man, super smart. I don't hate that. I hated the idea that we had this whole brave new world of newness, undiscovered country of Swift UI, and our first instinct to drag across all the old things. Give me coordinators, give me MVVM. I want that thing here again. And just because it worked well before doesn't mean it works well now. And I think a number of folks, myself included, have had a go at re-implementing the coordinator pattern in Swift UI. And it's a really bad fit. I mean, it's a really bad fit. It does not fit whatsoever. And so, sadly, at this point, there is no nice solution for handling complex navigation. There just isn't. And it's one of the major wish list things people asked for. Say, hey, could you, figure something out to do decent programmatic navigation? Because you can do it. It's just very, very static and nowhere near flexible enough. Again, I said earlier, they're taking their time. They're not going to go really, really big and then try and change their mind. They're going slowly, refining carefully, rethinking things for a Swift UI world. And so it's going to take time and eventually it'll get there. But right now, there is definitely no good solution. Whew, goodness me. Text with Markdown. How far can someone go with a custom Markdown style? Ultimately, it's not full fat Markdown, right? They've got a subset. The bits I care about anyway. It's all the inline styles. If you did like hash space some title, you won't get a header. It doesn't work. And so it is limited. But I don't know. I mean, I think I have to wait and see. At this point, they showed off the rainbow text example, and it's really cool. But I don't want to push it too far. I looked at, I said it earlier, the doc.c tutorial format, and they've done a lot of work there with Markdown directives, and it's no longer Markdown. I looked at it and thought that's not, like, all my books are Markdown, and that's not what I write in. I don't want to have that in my GitHub repo. And so I wouldn't push it too far because kind of the point of Markdown is we know how it works. We know use it straight away because it's on the Swift forum, it's on Stack Overflow, it's on my site, it's kind of everywhere. So I wouldn't push it too far. Hello, Paul. What do you think about the future with Combine? That is a challenging question. Vincent posted a joke meme on his iOS memes account saying, I'm in trouble because there were no Combine talks at WWDC 21. And that's not helpful, quite frankly. I don't want to scare people who've spent a lot of time learning Combine. It's certainly true that many, many things benefit more from async await or async let or async sequence than combine. A lot of the work required to make custom publishers, for example, is just gone, right? Because it's hard to do, messy to do, and async await and friends make that much, much easier. But it's not like, OMG, that's it, combine's dead. If it was that obvious, they would say so. They wouldn't have made combine because they knew this was coming. Async await wasn't a big surprise to them. Oh, who saw this one coming? This took years of work. They knew that before they launched combine. They're not stupid. And so there are still many tasks that combine does better. Fetch this URL, retry 3 times, debounce on this text, map to the data, replace the error with something else, then sync it on the main queue. It's just like bang, 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 bang in combine. It's beautiful. And async await can do it, of course it can, but nowhere near as gracefully. And so combine isn't dead. It's just wounded. it's just sleeping. We'll see. Do you have children? If so, are they interested in Swift/programming? I do have kids. I have 2 daughters. One is called Sophie and one is called Charlotte. Sophie has done talks about Swift. You can see them online on YouTube. She did one at UIConf last year. Did one at NS Spain last year with me, obviously. And she works really, really hard. She's good at Swift. She does lots of playgrounds and Xcode command line stuff. That's the older one. The little one, she uses Scratch and Hour of Code, the classic Hour of Code, with the Angry Birds and the Plants and Zombies and the Ice Age character. So yeah, my kids love coding different things. Facebook is still using Objective-C. That's true, but honestly, if I took any advice from Facebook, that would be my I've been taken hostage tweet. I don't have any interest in what Facebook consider a normal thing to want to do. Would I update the 100 days Swift UI for iOS 15? Yes, but not yet. Keep in mind, this is beta 1. I mean, not last, 2019 when it launched, beta 3, beta 4 had breaking changes from beta 1, right? They were changing things as they go because they're getting our feedback. Now, the way Apple works, of course, is nowhere near that responsive. They've already finished beta 2 at this point. That's already done. We haven't got it yet, but they've finished it at this point. They're looking at beta 3 at this point, which is why everyone's saying file your feedbacks now, because there's a big lead time. If you file a feedback now, today, it might maybe be fixed in beta 3. Probably not. Maybe beta 4. Probably still not. It's a big, big lead time. And so I want to make sure when I update the course, which I absolutely am going to do, heard it here first, it's stable, it's fixed. I've got to do it again and again and again because that would be soul destroying. I would not want to do that. Dear me. I watched your past 3 streams covering new things with Swift 5.5, SwiftUI 3, Xcode 13, and I'm wondering how you managed to learn it quickly and explain it extremely well on stream. Well, thank you very much. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Keep in mind, this is my job. I don't do code review. I don't do stand-ups. I don't groom the backlog. I don't have masses of corporate emails to answer. I haven't got to do presentations or one-to-ones or daily stand-ups. I don't know. All those things that I would do as a regular senior developer, they're all gone. When I was leading a team of people, I might do an hour or 2 of coding a day, out of 8 hours. The rest of the time was, mentoring, figuring things out, commercial stuff, backlog, Jira, whatever. This is stuff, right? All that dross of day-to-day stuff that is not coding, right? I have none of those things. My entire job is building things with Swift, then destroying them again, and then rebuilding them better, and destroying them again, and again and again and again, until eventually I go, yeah, This thing here, I like this thing. This is good enough to talk about, and then I write it up. And that's all I do. And I love my job. I acknowledge I'm very, very privileged to have this job. It's a very enjoyable job. Uh, but that's what I do. And so it's not that I'm, as some folks would say, I'm inhuman, I'm a machine. No, I'm just having a lot of fun exploring and trying things and building things and really sharing that. And also, that's what I was saying earlier to Ishmeet. I want to hear what you folks think. It needs to be a two-way conversation. I am lucky enough to get invited to speak at events around the world, maybe Brazil, that person who asked earlier. But I don't go there like get on stage, do a talk, and go, yeah, well, I'm Paul, and then go home again. That's nothing. I'm there to meet people and say, hey, what do you think is cool right now? Show me your code right now. Oh, that's cool. Can I talk about that? And I get loads of ideas. And I see all the other sessions that all the other speakers are doing, and I get ideas from that too. And it's just so powerful. So I very much enjoy my job. What else do we have? So many questions. Um, uh, is it important to learn UI kit in order to become a great Swift UI developer? I guess it all rides there on what does it mean to be a great Swift UI developer. Like, do you have to know UI kit to get a job? No, you don't. Lots of companies are recruiting straight Swift UI now. They develop Swift UI stuff. They want a junior to come on board. They'll train you up. Swift UI. That's just how it is now. It's great. But to be a great Swift UI developer, you're going to realize very, very quickly this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing, these 10 things you can't do in Swift UI right now. I mean, sometimes it's simple. Like, you can't change the list separator inset in your lists, right? Which is annoying. You can't do alerts with text fields inside. You can't do text views with rich text. There are lots of drawbacks to SwiftUI at this point. They're smaller, obviously, thanks to the 21, right? SwiftUI 3. So in order to be able to execute every kind of vision that comes your way, yes, having UI kit is important. To be able to build a wide range, a growing range of beautiful, useful, smooth, accessible apps. No, you don't. Let's have a look. What else we've got? I made my first screen to Swift watching a video. So that's great to hear. I'm glad you enjoyed it. A lot of folks tell me that, and it is one of the most encouraging things to hear that because, look, try and put yourself in my shoes a little bit, right? I don't see all the amazing work you're doing. I don't get to go to events anymore. All I see is this webcam, Logitech Streamcam in front of me, right? I'm basically talking to myself most of the time. And without people telling me, hey, this thing was really great, thank you, or this bit sucked, the typo everywhere, whatever. I don't mind what it is, just feedback on something. I've got no idea. I'm just kind of talking into the void. And so you have no idea how encouraging it is when someone tweets saying, oh, I've just read so and article by Two Straws and linking to it. That's like, oh, you've read my work, brilliant, you're sharing it, thank you so much. It's honestly, it really lifts me up. And yeah, I think some folks imagine that hacking with Swift is this big team, and it's not. It's just like me and my dogs, right? So I need encouragement and support as much as the next guy. So yeah. No more completion handlers and dispatch queue.pain.async. um, so async await changes a lot of things. It's very, very powerful. Dispatch queue's not going away. I think we're still going to see more work ship around that. Um, you got to keep in mind, Swift 5.5 changes a lot. I mean, I did a live stream on Swift 5.5, and it was 2.5 hours long. I didn't even get through every feature. I got through maybe 3/4 of the features in 2.5 hours. That's how much is changing. And it's still Swift 5.5. It's not Swift 6, right? This is a huge release, Swift 5.5. That tells you something about Swift 6. When they say this is Swift 6, you better sit up and pay attention because it's going to be, well, bluntly on fire. I mean, they wouldn't do it unless it was going to break something. This will break your code somehow with a major version change. That's why it's there. Because 5.1, 5.0, 5.3, 5.4, they were huge. Yeah, 5.0 was result. 5.1 was property wrappers and all that jazz, DSLs and similars. Massive releases. And there's still point release, point release, point release, point release. So when 6 starts happening, which I'm expecting, end of this year, start of next year, it'll start rolling towards release. It's going to be serious. They're going to break your code. I feel pretty confident about that. So yeah, we'll see. So I expect Dispatch Queue will get a new lease of life. We'll figure it out as it happens. Whew, goodness me, I can barely even see there's so many questions at this point. Where did the name Two Straws come from? That's an easy one. I don't want to depress you folks. When I was young, when I was a kid, my parents and my family, we were very, very poor. I mean, we had very, very little money. And my parents would sometimes, when they had the money, take us for a treat somewhere. This has been a great period. You've done well at school or something. Let's go somewhere good to celebrate. And they'd take me as a treat to McDonald's. That was our treat as a family, go to McDonald's. And I remember, this was it. I go to McDonald's. I wanted to make the most of it. I wanted to make the most of the treat, to really enjoy it. And so I'd put 2 straws in my milkshake to maximize the McDonald's experience. And that's where it comes from, 2 straws. And even today, I still prefer having 2 straws in my drink because, obviously to avoid plastic waste, it's reusable straws these days, but it brings me back to sort of happier days of family time and a happier childhood. So that's where 2 straws is from. Do I ever get confused switching between JavaScript or other languages and forget I have to have parens and semicolons there? A little bit. A lot of folks, I don't know why, assume hacking with Swift, the site, like the .com backend, is written in Swift. Like, no, it was not written in Swift. I launched that site 2014, the same year Swift came out, right? There was no server-side Swift. There was nothing like that at that point. It's all written in PHP. And as a result, I have to do a lot of PHP code. And it's quite a jump going to Swift, PHP does so many things really well. Their documentation, for example, is absolutely brilliant. It's community driven. There's lots of good stuff there. But as a language, wow, Swift is so much nicer. And so, yeah, I'm regularly like, there's an error. Semicolon. I just there's so much fluff. And Swift's good at that. Swift's good at saying this, no. Just go away. Not having them, forget about it. It's good at that. And of course, we partly have Erica Sadunta, thanks for that. She obviously removed the I++ and C style for loops way back in Swift 3. So it's come on a long way. Can I share links to my apps? So the one you're most likely to want to use is called Unwrap. You can get there from hackingwithswift.com/unwrap. And it is an app for learning Swift with text, with challenges, with awards and badges and videos, all built into the app. It's completely free. It's open source. You can look at my code, steal my code, reuse my code. Great, do it. Because I want everyone to, learn from it. It's quite fun. What are they saying over here? Closing comments. Oh no. Apparently I'm running out of time. That's a real spoil spot. There's so many questions here. I'll ignore that and just carry on talking till they interrupt me. How many languages do you know? How many coding languages do you know? A silly number. but that's okay. I spent so long, like in the past, really specializing in C sharp, learning all the corners of C sharp, building stacked C sharp stuff, da, 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 and I don't write a single line of C sharp today. I haven't done in years. In fact, my nephew had to do some for his school, and I was like, "Wow, how does this work again?" And that's okay. I'm a very strong believer that all the things you learn about C sharp, JavaScript, React, whatever, none of it's wasted. It'll come back and be useful in the future. And I did a lot of React stuff in JavaScript before SwiftUI came along. And so when SwiftUI ships, I'm like, oh, I get this. It's like React, bang, bang, bang. I found it very, very easy. This is why I wrote a book about SwiftUI in the week of WWDC, because I'd already had prior exposure to this style of declarative programming. And I honestly believe nothing you learn is wasted like that. It's all going towards a greater good of your career. So quite a few, but they're not wasted. Do you miss in-person dub dub? Yes, I do. Really, so much. And I know, and I'm not stupid. I know when it's online, everyone can be there and be involved somehow, but they're involved in like a shadow of in-person WWDC. At the lounges this time, the Swift UI lounge, when it's good, is amazing. It's all text based, but you know, Matt Rickettson's there, Taylor Kelly's there, Nat Panfarova's there, Kurt Clifton's there. Da, 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 da. They're all there, and you can talk to them and make jokes and have fun and chat, and it's lovely. It's interactive and it's alive. And that's at its best. But at its worst, some of the ones I've seen in the dev lounges where you can't talk to anybody, you can't even reply to anybody. All they can do is post so and so said this, here's the answer. So I said this, here's the answer. And it's just all the joy of these amazing new features just gets sucked out of the whole event really, really fast. And when you have an in-person dub dub, even without a ticket, just being in the vicinity, going to AltConf for free or just hanging out and getting coffee is amazing. I love it. You meet folks and go, "Oh, it's you from Twitter. Let's hang out. Let's get a selfie, or whatever." And you just chat and make friends and network, and all those chance encounters of just walking down the street and saying, "Oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?" They're gone in online. And so I would love for them to find a way to maintain this sort of vaguely okay online dub dub, but also bring back come along in person if you can, because uh, two examples, just two examples. I know I can probably they can try and kick me off soon. I talk too much. Sorry. Um,
You can take your
there's
time.
a
There's no
oh
rush.
fine. I'll just
Yeah.
mute that tab, shall I? So you can't kick me off.
Okay.
um,
I'm just gonna go and just let me know when you're good.
there are two events. There are lots of events at WWDC, right? It's a great week full of stuff, right? But there are two events at top and tail WWDC. One is called Core Sushi, and it takes place Saturday at Furosato Sushi in Campbell, sort of in the area of Cupertino. And it's just packed with Apple staffers. And I met someone there 2 years ago, and we were chatting, and like 2 days later, I was like, "Oh, you were doing Swift UI, and you weren't telling me, They knew all the time." And you're there, you're having sushi, you're having sake, you're mixing tables, chatting, making friends. You will learn so much in 3 hours of your life that you would not get in a week of this dub dub remote. But then the end of the week is Fiesta Kid, hosted by Tyler and Christina Fox at their house. And again, they're both Apple employees, so it's packed with Team UI kit and similar. Team Swift UI will go and hang out. It's the end of the week, but now it's all public. So they'll talk to you about what they've worked on, they'll ask what you think, and you're just sharing excitement face to face. And those two alone, I would go for. If there was no dub dub, nothing else, I would go for Core Sushi and Fiesta Kit. I'd fly out in a day if I could, of course, of the Corona, because they're so alive and so exciting and so much fun, and you build real friendships, and I do really miss that. So yeah, now I feel sad. Now I feel sad. Do you stay up to date with Swift evolution proposals? Yes, I do. And it's actually, uh, you know, Swift is open source. They're trying to be community driven, which is great. And one of the interesting things that this dub is they've changed so much in such a short space of time that many of the WWDC videos are already out of date. Like anything where you see async open brace, that's already gone in Swift 5.5 because of evolution. They've gone through that and said, oh, we didn't like that, do something else instead. It might come back in the future, who knows? But at this point today, it's gone. And so when beta 2 ships, beta 3 ships, those 10, 15 dub videos will just have code errors in them. Maybe they'll reshoot them. Maybe they'll change the code along, copy and paste stuff later on. I'm not really sure. Um, but that's the power of keeping up to date. If you go to what's new in Swift.com, the site I run, you'll have all the latest versions of the Swift proposals with the latest syntax. It is currently approved, so it's it's a very fast moving environment, which is fine. What's your advice to become a better developer? Sometimes I feel out of depth when seeing other developers on Twitter and WWDC. I want to be better. Oh, I hope I want to encourage you. You're not out of depth. We need people of all levels, of all backgrounds, of all experiences, of all skill levels in our community. And I think Twitter, particularly, I think Facebook's the worst, or Instagram's the worst, but Twitter particularly can be a highlight reel of your life. Here are just the best bits, right? If you follow me on Twitter, how often do I tweet? Oh yeah, today I'm really sad. Today, I argued with my wife. Whatever, I don't know, stuff. I mean, very rarely. I tweeted last week because I was annoyed that someone was quite mean to me, but um, pretty rarely because you don't want to, depress the world around you. And so, if you're feeling out of depth looking at other people, just keep in mind you're seeing only their best bits, their edited version of their life, the bits they choose to tweet. And they also have the same struggles as you. And I really do firmly believe that when you are trying to learn something, SwiftUI 3 or Core Data or I don't know, CloudKit, doesn't matter what it is, the more you struggle with it, like the more it sticks in your head. And I say that in the 100 Days course. There is no learning without struggle. If you get it really easily, it'll just go away easily because you didn't really have to fight to learn it. Whereas if you're working really hard and taking all these wrong turns and finally find the right solution, you've learned so much more. Like all those wrong turns, they weren't really wrong turns. They taught you a lot along the way. And so get comfortable struggling. Feel okay about it because you know you're going in the right direction. When you aren't struggling, when you aren't succeeding, you're just kind of staying still. Fine, you got a problem. But if you're sitting there saying, I'm doing my best and not getting anywhere, you are getting somewhere. And I want to encourage you to keep on keeping on, as it were. What's my background? How did I come to be my current job? Well, my current job is this. Insofar as it is, I've got a very easy job. My background is computer science. I was one of those very tedious kids who took up coding young. I think it was Visual Basic 4, which dates me pretty extremely. And then I did Delphi, I did PHP, I did C++, I did C Sharp. I've done all sorts of things. Um, but I left computing science like age 23 or 24 after having like laser focused all my education on coding, 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 coding. And I left to become a journalist for a while. I did a magazine about Linux of all things, quite frankly. It's a very strange jump, but it was a blast. I had a great time. Like being a journalist is a really, really sweet gig. And then I never stopped coding because it's like once you start coding, you don't want to stop coding. Everything is like a problem you want to fix. Your brain's always kind of buzzing with ideas and stuff, and that was me. And so I was coding at the time. I was doing Windows Phone. If you remember Windows Phone, I was doing Windows Phone apps at the time. I did some Xbox 360 stuff, obviously a lot of Linux software, a lot of web stuff. And then when the iPhone came along with the SDK, I started building apps for the iPhone in my spare time. And then the company I worked for said, "Hey, do you fancy starting a new team to do iPhone and later iPad for the company?" I went, "Yeah, sure." And then I stayed there for a few more years, and then quit to do this full time and have not looked back. I say I do very much enjoy my job. So yeah. What is the most common design pattern for both UIKit and Swift UI? That's a challenging one because UIKit had 30 years of design patterns behind it, and Swift UI does not. Swift UI throws away so many of the things we're used to in place of new things, like the actor model in Swift 5.5. Like, wow, look at this cool new actor thing. No, it's actually pretty old. Been around for a while. Just Swift UI is now Swift's now seeing it. Sorry, not Swift UI. Swift's now seeing it. Um, Certainly in UIKit, it was more clear to see design patterns because it had been around a very, very long time. And in that case, delegation was by far the most common pattern to have because we use delegates all over the place. That's mostly gone away now. We prefer this reader monad, the environment instead. So it's in flux. It's in flux. That's true. Dear me, how do you adapt to these late nights? As a Brit moved to Canada, I can appreciate the time difference. So I'm there, like in San Jose. It's not a problem. Um, the last 2 years, it's not been, and so it has been a problem. And so last Wednesday, I want to say, check my diary, maybe before Wednesday, Tuesday perhaps. I was busy working very, very hard. Let me check my diary really fast, see what day it actually was, because it was around about then. So last Tuesday was the 1st of June. And I wanted to ship this whole bunch of new Hacking with Swift Plus features for my subscribers. Getting rid of adverts from the site, being able to read books free online, having chapters in my videos, all these new things I wanted to cram in to announce on June the 1st, the 1 year anniversary of my subscription service. And it was a lot of work. It was a huge amount of work and vastly, for a change, overestimated how much time it would take. So I ended up working late. It was like 2 a.m. I finished that night. The last thing I did was I sort of cleared the WWDC repository on GitHub, ready for this week. It was good to go. Done. I thought, well, it's Wednesday morning now. WWDC starts in a few days. I'm going to start switching time zone now. I'd normally try and move backwards towards Pacific time, Friday before the event. But I thought, well, it's now Wednesday. Basically, I might as well go for that instead. So I moved on Wednesday back 2 hours, Thursday back 2 hours, Friday I went back before late hours. Helpfully, I have these bad boys, melatonin, which you cannot buy in the UK. It's not sold over the counter, so I buy that in the US and bring it back here, and it helps you sleep. So I was on Pacific time for Monday and Tuesday. And then when I kind of got most of my work done, I was kind of happy with where I was. It's like, well, Wednesday, I'll just go back to New York time. So I sort of hedging more towards UK time again, and then ended up today waking up super early. So it was a confusing time for me, that's for sure. Anyway, apparently I should leave. So it's saying everyone's waiting for you at the venue. Okay, cool.
Well, it's been so engaging and inspiring talk, Paul. Really appreciate taking our time. So fortunately, the people.
About my sleep cycle.
I know
Like,
it's it's really hard work you're doing.
so this morning I went to bed at 1:30 a.m. New York time, and I woke up at 9 a.m. UK time because my dogs were barking, which was great. That was great. I had like 4 hours of sleep or something, and I've been awake since then. And it's now 3:10 in the morning, so that's almost 24 hours of being awake. I'm a little bit
Wow.
tired, but I'm sparking. I've still got some in me.
Wow, that's really appreciate, yeah, you doing this. And, your story, you talked a little bit about your past. It's been so inspiring. We always see the tip of the iceberg. You're doing great, but there were less people, who are inspiring in a way that their life journey has been so amazing to talk about it. And I hope people around listening to you they get inspired, and they be great developers as well. Um, so before we close the stream, just a few more closing comments from your side. What do you see coming in future for Swift UI, and what do you want to tell people who are just starting with Swift UI? What's a great way to learn, and what should they keep in mind? And after that, I think we'll just head over back to Gather Town, if
Yeah.
your sleep cycle
Well,
allows. If not, I'm not going to force you.
no, it's fine. I'm wide awake. Yes, I'll be on Gather Town in a few minutes to say hello to folks. I'd love to
Perfect.
chat to you all and hear back from folks. What was the first question again? uh, First question.
So
Oh, 50Y coming up. I
the
remember now.
future of, yeah,
So yeah, so where do I see 50Y going? What SwiftUI is unlocking is almost unthinkable levels of power because I was thinking recently, do you remember the UI view controller transitioning API? Like the one that lets you
yeah,
do like movement between navigation pushes and so forth. It's one of the
right,
most hated APIs in UIKit because
right,
it's almost opaque. No one understands it really. And you learn it briefly, do a feature, and then promptly just get it out of your head as fast as you like. And what it's trying to do
yeah,
is it's trying to say, we're moving from this screen to this screen and animate this thing from here to here. And what it's doing is basically a matched geometry effect in SwiftUI. That's what it's doing. Match me from this thing to this thing. And I don't care how it gets from here to here. You figure that out. So SwiftUI, if they can make it happen behind the scenes, the API I imagine being basically nothing. Matched geometry effect, A, B, it'll do the rest, bang. And that will transform one of the most complex APIs into a no-op for your brain. All those skills you have already, they just work. And that's what I see as
yeah,
being SwiftUI's future. More things like that. Oh, this thing you want? Yeah, it basically works. It's just out of the box. Like, and that's what it unlocks the reusability. In fact, this year, with the deprecation of alert and action sheet and similar, they've just put in place button, like SwiftUI button, everywhere. There's no more action sheet button or alert button. It's just button, 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 because it means all those things you know about button, they just work. They work everywhere. And
yeah,
that's what SwiftUI does brilliantly. It gets things out of your head and lets you focus on what really matters. No one wants to sit and ship a brilliant app because they love doing auto layout constraints so much. Like that's not what we're here to do. And SwiftUI lets you refocus on what actually does matter. And the second question was my advice to folks who are learning SwiftUI, how to do it.
yeah.
Um, I'll answer the question, but you won't like it. um, my advice is SwiftUI doesn't matter as much as you think it does. Swift doesn't matter as much as you think it does. Like I if you know anything about me, you know I like code and Swift. You know I like SwiftUI, right?
Yeah,
But they are the means to the end. They're not the actual end themselves. Our goal is
yeah,
not to discuss bindings and observable objects. Our goal is to use our skills to make the world a better place for our users. And it might be in a small way, helping them learn to play guitar better or faster. It might be in a serious way, tracking, heart attacks and similar on the watch. It doesn't matter. That's what we're trying to do, folks. And you can get lost in this mental model of just learning things and building things for the sake of learning things and building things when actually you have a chance to change the world, to reach 100 million people with your idea to make their lives better. And that's huge. And honestly, if you are learning now, if you're like 25 years old and learning Swift UI and Swift now, I've got some important news to you. It's not going to be here in 20 years' time. It'll be gone. The things that I learned 20 years ago basically don't exist anymore. They've moved on multiple times since I learned them. And that's okay. The exact specifics of Swift, the exact ideas and cool things Swift UI, they are not the point. They are helping us get to the actual point to build world changing things. And so I would encourage folks, Don't become a language zealot. Don't sneer at JavaScript developers. Don't go off about HTML is not a language. Everyone's trying to get the same thing done, to build greater things. So enjoy that. Don't make it a zero-sum game where they've got to lose so we can win. Focus on what matters. Make a difference in the world, and you'll be so much happier.
That's the greatest piece of advice, I've heard from anyone. One of my mentors before, he was just like you. He's just taught me, um, just focus on the task at hand. Just don't be biased and don't turn down people just because they don't know the language you do. Um, it's just about building a better world together. We're so fortunate to have people like you, leading the community in a better way. So thank you once again. Um, we're just gonna close the stream now, and we'll catch you back in Gather Town. Anything you want to say before we cut off?
I look forward to meeting you all there. Come along and honestly tell me about what you're working on. I'd love to know what you're working on. What did you find cool at DubDub?
Perfect.
What do you find cool in Swift 5.5? What do you want to learn right now? I want to hear from you. It's always not with ask Paul Hudson everything. Let's ask you everything. Let's ask what you folks think is exciting.
Perfect.
Much more fun for me.
Awesome. So, all right. Thank you everyone for joining. Let's see you back at Gather Town, and we'll have a chance to talk to Paul one to one. Take care, guys. Bye. Thank you, Paul.
Bye.
See you there.